Bandwidth for This Week in Sales provided by liquidweb.com.
Get your fishing poles out because we're fishing for prospects on today's episode of This Week in Sales. Hello and welcome to This Week in Sales. I'm Kevin Gaither. Thanks for joining us today. You may recall the goal of the show is to help sales professionals with tips and tactics and techniques to help them improve their performance right now. Today's guest is Justin Gray, who is the CEO and Chief Marketing Evangelist of LeadMD, which is a marketing automation and CRM consultancy. Justin, welcome to the show. Of course, it'd be nice if we actually heard you. So Justin, now I can hear you. What's your nightmare sales job?
Oh, well, that's something very relevant. I think I had 4 of them right in a row at the beginning of my career, but I think anything that doesn't actually put a focus on marketing to assist sales in building their pipeline, generating revenue, and closing business. So I think a lot of those organizations require cold calling, a lot of beating the street. That's certainly what I had a lot of experience with. So a lot of nightmares earlier on as we transitioned from traditional sales into the modern day sales process. So definitely happy to see the industry continue to align between sales and marketing.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Straight up cold calling is just becoming less and less effective. You know, just ask my friends over there at HubSpot. That's their whole business, just like yours, right?
Right, exactly.
Good. Well, Justin, let me introduce you properly to our audience. Justin Gray formed LeadMD in 2009 to help B2B organizations realize ROI with marketing technology. A true marketing as a service corporation, LeadMD specializes in outsourcing the core functions of a marketing department, either through on-demand solutions, consulting, or both. Since that time, Mr. Gray has emerged as a strong voice for marketing automation and conversation marketing through public speaking, industry publications, and his blog, The Marketing Evangelist. Of course, learn more about Justin and LeadMD at www.leadmd.com. So Justin, for those that don't know, what is marketing automation?
Another good question. If you ask 100 people, you'll probably get 100 answers. We just did a roundtable with Marketing Automation Institute a couple weeks ago, discussed that exact topic. So I'll give you my definition of marketing automation, and I guess we'll take that as law for the next 20 minutes. Marketing automation for me is the automation of the routine tasks that go into communicating with our buyer. So trying to segment who we're talking to, the right messages that work for them, trying to gauge their response to those messages, and then ultimately continue that conversation over and over and over again on a very micro level, but through a macro process. And that's where obviously software has become a huge benefit within that process. It's scalable, it's something we can count on, it doesn't have that human error component. So marketing automation is really just a series of workflow steps, but it's powered by a very powerful methodology that I would term conversational marketing.
You know, it got me thinking here, Justin, that Gerhard Schwantner of Selling Power Magazine and of the Sales 2.0 conference has actually been quoted as saying that, you know, salespeople might go away with technology. And I wonder, given that you're in the throes of doing what you're doing, and the statement that you made within your last sentence was, you know, getting rid of some of the human error associated with the sales process. What are your thoughts on salespeople going away entirely in favor of marketing automation?
I think that's highly dependent upon the industry that you're talking about. So, you know, as we've seen with the freemium type model and software sectors particularly, I think that you're seeing some of those sales organizations less necessary. Some of those individuals have kind of become extinct. But at the same time, depending upon the actual product or service we're talking about, they may become much more relevant just later down the line in that funnel and in that process. Right. So again, it all depends on the product or service we're selling. But I think that marketing automation has gotten rid of that lack of information. Everything today is about educating the buyer, presenting all the information right up front so they can make an informed decision. And that's what marketing automation has done in a very trusting, innocuous way, no longer high pressure. It's allowed us to communicate with that buyer, build that trust, and then pass that over to sales when the time is right.
Right, exactly. It's highly unlikely that United Airlines is going to buy an airplane from Boeing simply through marketing automation, right? But a freemium type product like You Send It or something like that, or some of our previous sponsors like EchoSign could absolutely be sold soup to nuts at a particular segment, of course, soup to nuts online with a system like yours, correct?
Yeah, I think that marketing automation has just removed the barrier of sales. So it's placed the constraint of sales where it needs to be, within those specific areas where we need someone talking to that individual. We need a face-to-face presence. It's gotten rid of the, oh, I have to talk to someone in order to buy this product. We never needed that in the first place. So I think it's just made us all more effective at what we do best.
Very cool. So what are some of the essential components of a proper marketing automation program?
Sure. I think that any marketing automation program should be centered around at least three things. One, better segmenting our leads, so at the same time also scoring those leads. So we're taking a look at our database and the individuals that are interacting with us either online, through email, through social, and we're starting to score them and segment them based upon who they are. So lead scoring tends to be one of the big focuses for me when we talk marketing automation. The next one is nurturing. We want to take those lower scored individuals, the guys that need more conversation to stimulate interest, and we want to begin engaging them over time and adjusting the message with a relevant message to them. So trying to find out who they are and what to talk to them about. But I always say you wouldn't start just telling your grandmother about iTunes. You probably have an educational process that went into that conversation. Sales is no different. We need to define who the individual is, what type of message they identify with, and then start serving those messages up over time. And then ultimately, sales and marketing alignment is my third main bullet point there, where sales can answer that age-old question of why is this a hot lead by seeing right in front of them in their CRM or on their computer screen the different movements that lead took and ultimately what qualified them. And then completing that circle in terms of passing that lead back to marketing if that lead's not ready to buy. And I think that's the number one breakage point that we see with most sales models is let's interface with them, let's determine if they're ready to buy. If not, let's move on to the next. We need to pass that lead back to marketing and foster it further. So those are my three main components to marketing automation. There's a lot more, and certainly other segments which are starting to arise, such as social, dynamic content, things that are really augmenting the functionality of marketing automation, but those are my three basics.
Okay, all right, gotcha. So segmenting and scoring your leads, nurturing the leads that need more conversations and touch points before they buy, and then pure sales marketing alignment, which we've talked about a lot on previous episodes. So now, Justin, remember, this isn't This Week in Marketing. We're talking about This Week in Sales here. So at the risk of losing some of our audience members that think they may have tuned into the wrong show, for those salespeople and sales leaders that may not have the resources to invest in a marketing automation tool like a Marketo, for example, and use your services as a consultancy, what can they do to, I don't know, replicate or simulate a marketing automation program?
So yeah, a lot of the components that marketing automation automates are components that used to reside in sales. So a lot of that back and forth communication, whether that be over the phone, via email, via social, God forbid, via print, a lot of those conversations that were happening in sales still need to happen. So if we don't have technology to enable us to scale that over and over, we really need to be efficient within our sales department in terms of forming those same conversations. So we start to look at another component of marketing automation, which is a facet of scoring for me, which is buyer personas. So looking at our target buyers really trying to lump them into stereotyped groups. And normally these stereotypes rely heavily on psychographics. So psychographics, firmographics, demographics, and behavioral components all come together to try and paint a picture of who our buyer is. It tends to be much more simple than that might skew. So if I'm looking at my buyer, I tend to have several different types of buyers. People that buy on trust, people that buy on value, people that buy on their own worth or their own career path that they're maybe trying to accelerate the purchase. So we can start lumping these different buyers together and then address their main needs, their pains, their wants with tailored messaging. And whether we have technology to do that or whether we need to do that in some sort of manual process, which is a little bit abbreviated, we still need to do it because ultimately that's the only way we're going to be able to identify with that buyer and get them to listen to our message and to determine why our solution is the best.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let me back up here for some definitions. Psychographics, firmographics. Most people know what demographics are, but tell me what firmographics mean, and tell me what psychographics mean.
Sure. So firmographics basically, we're trying to give life to the organization as a whole. So that company, what do they look like? Are they a streamlined shop? Do they have a lot of silos? What does the internal buying process look like? Again, these are items that are hard to differentiate via web form, but sales is in a very unique position to uncover some of these components and then respond to them with very, very tailored messaging. So psychographics, on the other hand, what makes us who we are? Why do we buy? A lot of us in our personal lives buy for the exact same reasons that we do in business. If you find someone that is heavily focused on trust and wanting to determine, will the solution work for me and others that look like me? Maybe we start meeting that individual's needs with case study and results from other customer engagements. So really important to try and define what this individual is looking for from all of those different components, demographic, firmographic, psychographic, behavioral components, and then tailor that message back to them that they're going to identify with and build trust in our organization.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for that. So again, for those playing the home game here, if they walk away from this show and they want to take the first 3 steps to creating, let's say, one buyer persona, okay, what would they do? What's our audience, a sales leader or an individual contributor? What 3 steps, as an example, should they do to create their very first buyer persona?
So I think one of the unique things that we see when we engage with marketers and executives in creating buyer personas is the first step tends to be always interviewing sales. So they have that unique information that we're striving for anyway. So they're on the front line, they're engaging with clients, they know why someone is buying from them, not buying from them, what their pain points are, what their reservations are. So interacting with the sales group can yield a lot of great data that we can build buyer personas off of. So the first step there is to survey and to bring together the sales group and determine what are those components, and then start kind of fitting them within those different buckets. There tend to be between 3 and 5 buyer personas for most organizations. Anyone that has more than that probably has probably has different lines of business within that overall umbrella business. So if I take a product of mine, marketing automation, for instance, I tend to be selling to 4 different types of people. So by analyzing those 4 different types of people, lumping their traits into different buckets, I can start developing messaging that engages with those buckets. And again, that's our third step there, is developing good messaging that engages the buyer that I can use over and over again to try and stimulate interest or determine which product that individual is interested in. So it's kind of that interview process over email, over phone, but I'm trying to get to the main pain points that that persona ultimately personifies.
Okay, gotcha. Good, and I can't wait to get to that next step. Get the buyer persona, and then what? But this is your opportunity for a shameless plug, if it exists. Is there content on your site, Justin, that gives more instruction on what buyer personas are all about?
So that's an interesting case study and exactly what we're talking about here. So all my buyer personas want information. So whether I'm talking to a VP of sales who's interested in better leads, whether I'm talking to a CFO who's interested in what in the world is marketing automation, everyone wants good information to try and make that decision, is the solution right for me? So http://leadmd.com/pigsfly. So it's our nurture series. If you sign up there, you'll get great information like this in your inbox every 2 weeks. Helps you decide, is marketing automation right for you? Helps you put things together like buyer personas and lead scoring methodologies. A lot of great information comparing vendors, comparing service organizations, and trying to show you what types of results you should expect from these. So yes, in our business, education is absolutely the key. In the old days, people bought because of lack of information. Now they buy because of an abundance of information. So please, leadmd.com/pigsfly. Take the free information that we give away. It's no obligation, and certainly will help you at least define these terms for yourself and your own organization.
Great. LeadMD/pigsfly. Excellent.
Right.
Okay, good. So assume that now the sales team and the marketing people or the leaders of the company, frankly, have taken the time to create 3 to 5 buyer personas. Happy? Not yet. What do they do next?
So obviously we need to start crafting that messaging that engages those different buyer personas. So, early stage messaging, much different than late stage. I'd suggest that everyone from a sales perspective, even if you don't have a marketing automation solution in place, start getting down smaller nurture campaigns that engage those personas. So let's start off with introducing the solution and some results that you've seen in the past. Let's get further down within that content funnel to, comparing your solution against your competitors, taking a look at real results that your solution yields. So it's really, we can string together, let's say 5 to 10 emails staggered with touches over the phone and so on, that might allow us to start building our own mini nurture campaigns. Keep in mind, nurturing lasts for a long time. Our typical nurture tracks run over 60 weeks. So from a
60 or 16?
60. So that's
wow.
A lot of content. But from the sales perspective, we have to start somewhere. So let's craft 5 different email messages that we're going to follow up with our buyer persona and try to engage that interest. And normally you can start fitting someone within a persona by their job title, those initial conversations, what they did to raise their hand, where they came from. So sales is, again, in that unique position. They're on the front lines, and they've got access to this information directly, rather than marketing that's relying on other facets of the organization to share that with them.
That's excellent. I've heard criticism of buyer personas, compared and partnered with the messaging, in that some people have said, well, isn't that somewhat like manipulative? Like you're basically trying to get in their head and use messaging that manipulates them because you think something about Jane marketer or Joe CFO or something like that. How do you respond to that manipulation claim?
I would say that we're all guilty of manipulation then, because we do this face-to-face with everyone within our lives. We're trying to figure out what they're interested in and how to tap into that interest. So it's not that we're looking to manipulate them with content. We're just looking to meet their needs in relation to what they'd be looking for anyway. So myself as a buyer, I consider myself a value buyer. I'm looking for, how will this lower my total cost of ownership? How will I be able to run my business on this for years to come? And if someone taps into that and really starts meeting my expectation with those types of messaging, I'm going to thoroughly enjoy that sales process. If someone hits me with the wrong messaging or something that's very generic, I'm going to be put off as a buyer, and we're going to have a worse experience all around. So if done properly, buyer personas and lead nurturing are a powerful tool to further engage the buyer, not push them away.
Right, exactly. One of the very first episodes that we did on This Week in Sales was with Mike Brooks, and he uses the phrase, speak to their listening. And really what that means, of course, is exactly what you're saying, and that is, if they're interested in X, why would you go about start talking about why, and that discovery process can be enhanced with good pre-call planning. So if you think that pre-call planning is manipulative, then marketing automation is probably not for you either, right?
Right, or maybe just sales.
Yeah, generally speaking, right, right. Good point. So as we wrap up here, Justin, are there any final tips, tactics, and techniques that you want to lay on our audience, sales leaders and sales professionals, things that they should do to help increase the efficiencies of their sales process and, of course, their associated customers' buying process, most importantly? Any tips, tactics, and techniques you want to leave with us?
Yeah, I would say ultimately what we always recommend is create a process and follow it religiously. So if we're going to do this for a couple leads, we need to do it for all of our leads. Make sure nothing's slipping through the cracks. Make sure that we are trying our best to segment them properly, and that we're following up with those emails on a very process-based scenario. So making sure that we're not forgetting to send our second email or skipping to the fourth or just abandoning the process altogether. Let's keep working that system and then get some data in terms of what people are responding to and go back and revisit it and change up that messaging. So it's important to note that nothing is an instant fix or a quick fix. This is all a process over time to try and engage our buyer at a deeper level and really listen to what they're telling us.
Right. Fantastic. We just had Gil Cargill on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he said, you want to fix your sales? Fix the process. And I couldn't be a bigger believer in that. So that's all we have for this week. Justin Gray, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Kevin, for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So for those that have questions for me, feel free to email me at askkevin@thisweekin.com. Of course, we're always looking for sponsors for the show. So if you're interested in pairing your content with our content, feel free to reach out to me once again at askkevin@thisweekin.com. Of course, like our Facebook fan page, This Week in Sales, and tweet at us at SalesWeek. Of course, find our audio and video content on iTunes and go to YouTube, youtube.com/show/This Week in Sales. Thanks for joining us this week, and we'll see you next week on This Week in Sales. Justin.